Just tell me about the night Hendrix came to you wanting to hear the truth about what happened to Samantha.
Well, he had come into the room at about 2 o'clock in the morning, woke me up, and just due to earlier discussions he had heard, and he said he wanted to know the truth. We had always been referring to Sam as being lost. That's the word that we used. And he couldn't understand if she ran away, if she was lost, why she can't find her way home. And he just simply wanted to know the truth. So, I was half asleep, when he asked me. And yeah.
Why do you suppose he came to you at that particular time? This was at the end of December, correct? And Sam had already been missing for about a month.
Yes, yes. I believe that he came to me at that time because it was keeping him up. He couldn't stop thinking about it. And, I guess in a way he was scared and he wanted to know what was really going on,
Had you sensed any of those emotions in him leading up to that night?
Yes, I have sensed it. One of my sister Jacqueline's friends came down around the holidays, and he brought gifts for all my boys. And the gift that he gave to Hendrix was a map. It was a world map, and he was like, well, what am I supposed to do with this? It's a map, what do you do with a map? And Jacqueline explained to him that you use it to find your way when you're lost. And he later went back to Jacqueline and said to her, well, why can't you use this map to find Samantha, because she's lost? So, it really started to show at that point. He was in tears when he couldn't understand why the map couldn't help Sam. So yeah. And he was around, for a lot of the conversations, because that's pretty much all we could talk about and think about.
Well, sure. And I'm wondering if you learned anything about your son's perceptiveness or awareness that perhaps you didn't know before.
Well, I really still do not think that he understands the concept of death, and especially not like a tragic loss, or I don't think he really understands that. So I think he's starting to come around now to understand that, because everything's been official now. So
that's what I was leading into. Have you noticed any changes in his behavior or in his demeanor since you had that chat?
Yes, he has most certainly become a lot more emotional. He gets upset a lot easier, and he definitely seems a lot more aware now of what's going on. He shows a lot of emotion. He breaks down in tears a lot. He's it's really gotten to him.
So then that would lead me to believe that you might have some lingering concerns that he might revisit this in his mind, especially the circumstances of Samantha's death.
Yes. That is definitely a concern that my husband and I both have. Obviously he was up late at night and had to come into the bedroom to ask me about it, and he's kind of gotten a lot more emotional about it. So I do worry going forward how much this is going to re-enter his mind, and how we're going to handle that, pretty much. Going forward, we have grief counselors set up and ready for anybody in the family that needs them. And so yeah, it's a concern that that trauma is going to stay with them.
Kimmy, do you have the belief that time heals all wounds? And is that something you might hope for?
Well, I don't necessarily believe that time heals all wounds. I think with time, your grief may get easier. but it never fully goes away. Just from personal experience, it never fully leaves you. There's always going to be that emptiness that you feel when you lose somebody that you love. And
As a parent, how did you know what the right way would be to respond to Hendrix? Was it something intuitive? Did you have time to research that? Did you lean on others for advice?
no, I mean, it definitely felt more like like maternal instinct to know how to gently talk to him in a way that he would understand without being too, I guess, graphic, if that's the word, but just to explain to him in a way that he could understand. And yeah, I mean, I didn't have any time to research anything or talk to anybody about how to do that. It was definitely an instinct, I think. Yeah.
So then, given your personal experience, what, if any, advice might you have for parents who have to deal with a child who's experiencing death or tragedy for the first time?
Well, I mean, I would definitely advise just being as open and honest as you possibly can, because, children, they're smart. They are very aware of things that are going on around them, emotional things, any kind of tragic things. And if they're asking, it's best to tell them, not getting into certain things that are not appropriate to say to children, but talking to them in a way that they can understand, and keeping them calm. But it's important to be honest and open about, the questions that they have.
A few moments ago, you mentioned you don't think Hendrix fully grasps the concept of death. Does he understand the concept of evil?
I think now he does.
That has to be so heartbreaking for a parent.
Yeah. Some of the things that he has asked, since we have explained to him that we believe, something bad happened, and that somebody did something bad. He just, he couldn't understand for a while why somebody would do something bad to a child. And, he's asked things that have been a little bit concerning, in regards to just, well, what happens to bad people when they do bad things? And, that in itself is a very hard conversation to have. So, yeah.
Do you think it would help him and certainly help your family if and when there's a successful prosecution?
I believe that will bring a lot more closure than there is right now. And yes, we definitely, as a family unit, all of us, every side of our family, it would make a lot of people feel a lot better, knowing that the person who did what they did is going to be punished for it.
Can you imagine a more difficult conversation to have had with your son?
I've thought about it, and I really cannot think of a more difficult conversation, to have with my child about the tragic loss of another child, especially a family member of ours.
Now, certainly Hendrix and Samantha and his other cousin Matt, they live many miles apart. So how close was he with his cousins?
Well, the last time he had seen his cousins, it was a couple of years ago. Just because of the distance and everything, but he's very much, they've kept in touch with each other via social media, as far as, talking on the phone, or, when they came by, on their way down south a couple of years ago. So, but he feels a very strong sadness, that she's not here anymore. And he got really close with Sam's brother Matt. So,
And clearly he also sensed the sadness in Jacqueline when she was there visiting, and he senses your sadness.
Yes, very much so. That was not something that we could hide. That's just and he would always ask me and wonder, why is Aunt Jacqueline so sad all the time, you know? And we had to explain to him, you know, that that's her daughter, and there were so many unknowns at the time, and you know, that's really scary in itself, not knowing what's going on. And yeah, so he definitely picked up on all of that.
Yeah, he sure did. Kimmy, what haven't I asked you? Is there anything I haven't asked you that you wanted to talk about?
um I mean, not that I can really think of. Yeah, but
Well, you answered those questions so beautifully and articulately, and I can't imagine the difficulty it is for you and your entire family to deal with this. And I'm sure so many other families are going to benefit from this conversation, and that's a wonderful thing.
well, I hope so. And you know, I do recommend that any other families that are, you know, affected by this definitely try to talk to somebody. It helps to talk sometimes.